Texas State Senator Charles Perry on the phones with us here on KFYO. Senator Perry, welcome back to the show.
Yeah, it's good to be back on. Unfortunately for this issue, though, it's not so much fun, but not surprising.
Well, tell us your initial thoughts from today's Supreme Court ruling on same-sex marriage.
Well, I'm going to be a little bit, I'll be on the political position I believe that we're facing, but on just a personal note, too. I think you can't ignore this issue and not be a little bit on a personal faith-based issue. First of all, on the Supreme Court level, I think that the republic form of government that we have instilled into this Constitution that we operate under has been totally dismantled. Under republic form, a minority voice should be heard and considered in decisions, but it seems that the minority voice has become the sole determinant on most of the Supreme Court decisions, which really can only be justified by the fact that I think they've been politicized to the point of beyond recognition of separation of branches and power. So I think that we have a real issue in a fundamental political sense of just the internal foundation of our structure of judicial, legislative, and executive branches being so politically motivated in their decision processes that we paralyzed the country and it's heading us down the wrong road. On a states' rights matter, I mean, when 3 out of 50 states in the union have had an affirmative initiative, ballot initiative, indicating they wanted this decision that we received today, 47 other states either choosing not to have it or not to vote for it if it was put up for ballot initiative. I don't know what that says. Again, it goes back to the republic form of government that we operate under, where, a democratic form of government is majority rules every time. We want that minority position to be heard and considered, but it can't be overruling on every issue. And on this issue, it's very much an extremely small minority guiding this decision process and winning the debate of the day. And that should give some pause to our political process and people involved in it. I think on a personal note, and you may not have wanted to have a personal note, but I operate under a very fear of an absolute truth and standard, and it's set in our biblical foundations of this country. It's set in my faith, and I think history bears me out on this, that when we begin to act in the way we're acting as a nation, that nations will be subjected to God's removing, if you will, protection. And I have some deep-seated concerns that when you lose your moral and absolute truth and standard, that you can't get that back. And I just don't see how we're not there today. So very, very concerning on several levels.
Visiting with Texas State Senator Charles Perry, I want to ask you about a couple of issues that, it goes back into this past legislative session and the Pastor Protection Act that the state of Texas passed. And I think if everybody's honest, you guys probably saw this coming. You guys probably saw this decision from the Supreme Court. So you wanted to step in and say, okay, let's protect members of the clergy out there. Does this ruling, how does this ruling impact that law in your mind? And then also, let's say you're a justice of the peace out there, or you are a county clerk. Are you going to be required by the Supreme Court to issue the license, or are you protected under this law that was passed by the state legislature?
No, there's no protection to any government official in the capacity of issuing marriage license under the current ruling. I don't believe now. That said, as a practical matter, I think you're going to see challenges pop up, and I hope. And there is a civil process in which we need to engage now from a state and from a county and elected official perspective to push back. And if there is an individual that is fundamentally in violation of their liberty, of religious liberty and belief system, they should not be forced to be engaged in issuing that license. So we're going to have that debate, those lawsuits and those issues come up. And we expected that. In the legislature, we knew that if this ruling came down, that we are going to now have the baker incident where the cake baker refuses to bake a cake for a gay marriage couple. And that was challenged in Oregon and I think some other states. So we're going to have the baker law cases come up. We're going to have public officials that feel like it violates their fundamental religious belief system come up. This is going to open up a whole new litigation area for it. But the state of Texas, I think, can push back. And I just hope on a personal level that there is a pushback to where it becomes the issue that it needs to be, because this is a fundamentally changing decision on so many levels that needs and deserves a pushback for all kinds of reasons. But we're going to have those lawsuits now. We put in the Pasture Protection Act. I don't think that'll hold water, and what I mean by that, it will be challenged as couples come into the congregation that have this type of lifestyle, and if a pastor's truly preaching from, and in my opinion, what biblical truth says, they're going to be challenged as a pastor, and then you're going to see the 501c designations, because effectively this has created a protected class. And in order to have that 501c3 designation, you're going to have to non-discriminate against those protected classes going forward. So I think you're going to see just a barrage of assault. And it won't be immediate, because this minority voice that has won the day is pretty calculating in their methods, and they'll pick out those weak congregations or those that have limited resources to push back and start impeding and kind of whittling away. But it's the beginning of the end in both, I think, in a Christian/community unity setting, because it's a wedge that our government has placed in process and will continue to engage. And you'll see a deterioration in that. The public policy side of this, you're going to have school boards now having to grapple with the idea of transgender restrooms, shower facilities. All of these other issues are going to be coming up to light now and being pushed forward as agendas. It's a huge decision point. It's a point in our country where I hope that people will take a pause and say, no, this one's not good. This is one that we should push back on. And I hope we see that.
Visiting with Texas State Senator Charles Perry, just one more question for you. Yesterday, I know the Texas Attorney General was saying, okay, everybody just wait as far as clerks go and issuing marriage licenses. He wanted to see the language first, kick it around, and see exactly where the state would stand on this. As far as you have seen, does this absolutely wipe out Texas's ban?
Well, Texas doesn't actually have a ban. It just has the pastor ban. The pastor ban will survive on a legal front initially, but I think through application of lawsuits and pursuance by this minority voice into that congregational setting, it'll just become by default. They'll just give up because of the resources there. On the Attorney General side, we don't have anything in place that effectively negates this ruling today. We had several pieces of legislation. I filed one to where we couldn't use taxpayer dollars to fund a marriage license for a gay marriage ceremony. That did not get a hearing or get through the process. So there will be I think, a rethink of some of those initiatives. How can we whittle away? And I'll use the example of Roe v. Wade. You know, it is the law of the land, but we have been successful as a state to uphold the state's beliefs that that's not a policy that's good for general public policy purposes, and we've been able to shore up and whittle away the ability to have abortion on demand. So you will see a whittling away of this ruling at some level on some ordinance or some statewide initiative, I believe, over time, but it's going to take time to do that.
Texas State Senator Charles Perry, appreciate your time today, and we'll speak to you in the future, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you, and that's Texas State Senator Charles Perry here on KFYO, the Chad Hasty Show.